Hi, I'm Jonathan DeLeon from Focus First, and today I'm going to show you how to price a home in an area with a mixture of new and resale homes. Now, as always, I'm going to be using graphs created from the Focus First software, the only software built to help you do a competitive, not just comparative market analysis. And I'm going to be following the competitive positioning process, which is step 1, understand the subject property. Step 2, understand the area patterns. Step 3, establish the value based on the sold properties. Step 4, competitively position the house against the active market. And step 5, finally price that home on a bridge to get the most eyes and attention on it. Now in this example, we're going to be using a real life example that I actually did in the past when selling a house I used to own. So step 1 here, understanding the subject property. This is the details of that house. It was located in Wellington, Colorado. Its total square footage was 3,376. It was a ranch house that did not have a finished basement, but was a full-size basement. So the finished square feet was just the main level at 1,688. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath on 7,200 square feet, built in 2016 in a subdivision known as the Meadows. Now, the key features of this house that we had built the house with had hardwood floors throughout the main living area, minus the bedrooms, had a 2+ garage, meaning there was a 2-car garage and then about a 6.5-foot section extended out to the side that did not have a garage door, but was a place for storage or other use. And we upgraded the counters in the kitchen to granite and fully fenced the yard. In some areas, the fully fenced yard is a big upgrade. In other areas, it's not. In Colorado, in this area, not every yard had the full fenced, so that was a very positive aspect for the house. So this is basically what the neighborhood looked like. Pretty straightforward little development. You can see here that red little dot is where the house was located. So we weren't on a corner lot. We weren't in a cul-de-sac. We were kind of on one of the general main roads here. So that's kind of the house we're looking at right there. So when we did this search and looked at the data, we really want to look at the wide area patterns and then the local patterns. The average area appreciation for basically northern Colorado has been about 5.2%. And so this little box area is about the years we owned it. So you can see that it has a general trend going up. No major jumps like you saw in 2021 if I had owned it still at that point. But during this time, we were expecting some growth from when we purchased it, but really kind of a stable build. And that's good to know because that really helps us understand that the market's not having giant ups, giant downs, but we can really kind of know that there's probably going to be good data and good understanding of the seasonality as this is going on because it is a stable area. Now, going from the wide area to the local area, we did our search in the MLS looking at that neighborhood the last 2 years to get a good grasp on what's been going on. Now, over the last 12 months, we've had about 80% odds of selling, which is very good. And if you haven't seen these graphs before, basically as I go through them, I'm just going to really talk about the takeaways. We have a lot of videos explaining how the graphs are made or really what they're saying, but I just want to make sure you guys understand this pricing process while I'm going through this case study. So again, the odds of selling here, we have 80% the last 12 months. Overall, when this house was kind of looking at being sold, the year prior was 2019. We had about 73 and then 72 the year before that. Now what this tells us is that the odds are actually getting better, so people are wanting to move here. And you can see that they're very high odds of selling. Anything over 60% is meaning that people want that house and are buying that neighborhood. So that's a very good sign for us. Now, we then looked at how long it should take us, and it's about 65 days on average before closing, with about $355 as our average sale price. Now, you can also see here that there's a good number of dots that went beyond that average day, even though there's a very good concentration behind that. Now, part of the reason why is the neighborhood had been under construction for a long time. And at this point in the last 12 months, we finally got to the point where all that new construction kind of came through and closed, which is why you have some of those that are really far out there if they're custom built houses, as opposed to the resale kind of being more in this 45 to 60 day window. So if I was to really kind of do a whole different time to close graph, we'd see that even differentiated more. But in this case, we just went ahead and went this average day about 65. Now, one interesting thing here to note is I was looking at pricing this house when it came to sell in about the May timeframe. So as you can see, this is the buying pattern or when homes sold throughout the year. And if we're looking to sell this in May, going back and seeing that it takes about 65 days, we would be really expecting to sell this probably in the July or August timeframe. Now that means we're not in our biggest window of buying, meaning that there's less buyers out there that are wanting to close on our house during those months. So that does tell us, all right, we're going to be looking for that rare buyer probably that's going to be these 1 columns, not the big, most busy times that are 5. So our main takeaways are we have super high odds, but we are in the low point of the sales pattern. And we should expect about 2 weeks to an offer. Should see some attention, but minimal offers because we are in that lower sales pattern. So if we get offers, we want to make sure we work with them. So that being said, we want to know what kind of offers we're looking for. So let's look at the value based on solds. Now again, we're looking at 5 key factors when it comes to our first scattergram, which is the location, the size, the condition, special features and amenities that really affect the value. So we look at a scattergram here, and this scattergram is just created by putting those sold properties as blue dots on, creating a trend line of fair market value, and then basically drawing a line from the bottom up at our subject property square feet. So looking here at our subject property square feet, that's that trend line, you can see we intersect it probably around the 385 range on the trend line. But the question remains is where do we fit in this graph? You can see some dots are close to the line, some are far away. So what we want to do is say which ones are we most aligned with. And the way we do that, in the process we do, is we first want to look at the outliers. So these guys out here that are way off the line, that are not like anywhere close to it, what is so different about each of these dots that's dragging them up or pulling them down? So I looked at those. Basically this top dot that's way up here has a fully finished basement and had a much larger lot than the rest of the neighborhood. The one on the left here had a fully finished basement. So you can see that one was up above the line, but not as far above as the one on the top right. The one at the very bottom, back to a busy road, in this case it was actually an interstate, had only a 2-car garage while most of that neighborhood had a 3-car garage. It was actually one of the oldest houses in the neighborhood and it didn't have any upgrades. So all the counters were basically the base model. They didn't do any extending of the hardwood throughout the house. It was basically just what the builder wanted to offer. And finally, this one here that's a little bit further down the line was a 2-car garage, and it was also kind of older and had most of those base elements. They had a couple of small upgrades, but not to the level of what we're looking for in our house. So that being said, we've looked at those and kind of identified what's dragging up and what's going down. So for example, a 2-car garage is a negative pull in this neighborhood, where the most of them in the middle had about 3 cars. The ones on top that had finished basements or larger lots are getting pulled up. So we start asking ourselves, what do we have or what do we match with or not match with? Now we match with the 2-car garage, however we have that 2-car plus, so we don't fully match with that. And we do have some upgrades and newer finishes, and we are a newer built house compared to some of these other ones. But we don't have a fully finished basement, and we're on a standard sized lot. So we're not going to be way above, we're not going to be way below. So now the question is where do we fit as far as proximity to that line still? So we look at the similars first by size. You can see that these are the ones that are closest to our square footage, and really look at them and say, do we match any of these very well? When I do this, again, this one has a fully finished basement, so it's above the line. And then walking down, I got cut off a little bit here, but this one here in the middle is a near clone of our house, but it had a 3-car garage. The one below, again, was that same with 2-car and older. So the one that's a near clone of our house is the one that we want to really look at because it has all the same finishes, most of the same inclusions, and the only difference is it has a 3-car garage, where ours did not have a 3-car garage, but theirs also did not have a fully fenced yard, and ours did. So it kind of puts us feeling like if a buyer was to look at both houses, you have to make the choice. Do you want a 3-car garage or a 2-car in storage and a finished yard with the fully fenced in area versus not? That kind of starts feeling like a tie, and if we match something that closely, we can kind of assume we're going to be about the same amount under the line. So that helps us get a base value when we first look at it of somewhere around here, which is about the 370,000 range. Now we know we're going to be below the line because we don't have the 3-car garage that's kind of standard, but we do have some better finishes and things like that that could kind of keep us up there with the 3-car garage that didn't have the finished yard. So that's kind of our thought process here. Now again, we don't know for a fact though that the market's not moving up a lot or not moving down a lot, or things like that. So we're going to expand our idea and look at the range that we could probably price the house at here in yellow, meaning we could maybe get up to that 385. Or we could be down more in the 360, 365 range if the market's kind of going down. But really what we want to look at then is what our competition is. What else are buyers seeing on the market that they have a choice at buying our house or another one? And that's this green range. So going into that, we're going to now be able to move on to competitively position the home. Now, before I do this next step, I want to make sure that as you're watching this video, you might be saying, how'd you get these ranges or how'd you get to this step? We do have more videos teaching this whole thing in depth. So check us out on YouTube. This is just meant to be a case study showing you how this whole thing kind of panned out. So now look at competitively position the home. We are going to go into the second search in our searching guide, really focusing on the price range a buyer can afford, and then thinking like a buyer. They're going to search by price range, the area they want to live in, and then the features of the home that they're going to kind of weigh their options, and then probably choose the one that makes the most sense for them. So to do that, we're going to look at a wider area that they would want to live in. In this case, we actually looked at the whole town of Wellington, which is a small town in northern Colorado. There's only a couple of stoplights in the whole town, and there's a lot of houses being built. But we want to look at these to say, okay, where would someone want to build or buy that really fits into this whole zone? And you can see the red square here at the bottom is basically our neighborhood, and then the whole town is here in the yellow. So we looked at this buyer zone, and what we looked at when we got that data is the first thing we realized is we are in a severe buyer's market now. Sure, houses have been selling great. Our odds are up there. But right now, the momentum of this market is shifted severely to the buyers. Now, it's kind of interesting because if you actually scan back here, and I will jump back pretty far a ways. If you look back at this odds of selling, you can see here that right underneath these graphs is an area that has the absorption rate. And in this case, homes have been selling about 3 per month, and there's 0 months of inventory. That tells us our house should be selling instantly. However, when we look at what's happening in the greater market, not just in our neighborhood, we see something very different. In this case, it's much more shifted to the buyers. Get back to that graph, and you'll see why in just a second. And for us, the scariest number we see actually is that in this top right, there's 10 projected homes that are going to be sold in the next 90 days. Now, in this top layer of water of the pond, there are 10 homes that are under contract. So that means that there's no new homes that are predicted to come on the market or actually go off the market in the next 90 days. Now that scares us a little bit because we have to now beat the statistics. We have to get lucky and find that random buyer. So to do that, we have to make sure we understand that the momentum toward buyers, we're going to look from base price and we're going to go down. We're not going to be going up to that 385 anymore. And we have to really work with any offers we get and aggressively position to make sure people see us and know we exist. So looking at all the houses that are for sale in the greater town of Wellington, we find is a bunch of houses that are under contract and a bunch of houses that are available for buyers to look at. Now, what's really interesting about this is the first thing we want to do when we look at a positioning scatter is look for patterns. And we actually found one pretty easy here. All the houses up above here are those that are new construction, and the ones below are the ones that are resale. So you can see there's really 2 trends going on, and in particular, there's a lot of new construction still happening, maybe not in our neighborhood, but in the neighborhoods around it, that's really taking up a lot of that demand. You can see that there are 7 homes under contract that are new construction, only compared to the 3 that are in resale. So this is having a big effect on where the buyers are putting their offers, where the buyers are putting their money, and that's kind of why all of a sudden we're in this situation where the buyers kind of have gotten sucked up into the market, and we don't have that pent-up demand because we're in that low area of the pattern and all the demand has basically been taken out. So that doesn't mean we can't sell the house, though. What we need to know, though, is we want to make sure we position ourselves correctly. We're going to make sure we position ourselves against the pattern that matters to us. In this case, are we new construction or resale? Now, obviously, we're resale. And you'll see this time and time again when you look at new construction and resale areas, there are 2 trend lines. In most cases, new construction sells for a little bit more, and they have a higher odds of selling, but just because they can do more and manipulate more when it comes to timing or when it comes to financing. And that's just kind of how it is. Now in this case, we're resale, so we got a position against the homes on the bottom. So looking at our base price, putting our little graph in here, we can kind of look that we're in a pretty good position right off the bat, right? We have all the new construction above us, not really kind of in our forte, but the ones below, we don't really have any houses that are bigger than ours and cost less. All the houses that are down here are smaller and cost less, which kind of makes sense. If they don't have special features that we don't have, then it would be very clear to us that a house that is smaller should be less price if all the features are the same. So we're not in a negative spot here. And if you kind of look back and think about this, and we'll look at this in more depth in a second, we're pretty close to that trend. Now, if we go down, like we were thinking about potentially doing because the pawn told us to go down, and look at 365, we're in a really good spot because now we're in a spot where we're beating all the competition that is smaller than us for the same price or even more, and we're clearly the best value. However, the question starts to become, is that too low? Because if we look at this pattern again, bring this back up, at 370 we are below the line just like we were in our neighborhood example. Now if we go lower down to 365, we are way below the line. And in all fairness, that way below the line probably helps us get more offers and more guaranteed sell, maybe. Because people might start asking what's going on with it, what's wrong with it. Also, as this personal seller or when you're talking to your sellers, you still want to get the most value for their house and the right value. So in this case, we're still leaning toward that 370, which matches it and puts us in the right spot where we're not in a disadvantage to anybody. And we have buyers looking at our house. Now, the only thing though is there a way to improve that? And of course, we love pricing on a bridge, which is step 5 in this process. Now, for our example here, the closest bridge is $375,000, which is a much stronger number for the way people are searching online or how they're looking for listings. So we love the idea of 375 because that's going to get more eyes on the house. Now, what actually happened in this case? We were 12 days to an offer, 45 days to close, and what we did was 45 days to close after the 12-day offer, that is, and we actually listed at 375 and amazingly enough sold with 5,000 concessions, meaning our net was exactly the 370. It's crazy how much it worked out exactly as we thought it should, and how much the value was found there in the market by the one buyer that bought in our neighborhood in basically a 5-month period during that time. But that's just how it works. The reason why is the graphs created by the Focus First software just give you clarity and really give you guidance to get you in a very small window where you have the right ideas and the right mindset that tends to work. Now, if you're ready to go ahead and join your top performing peers that are currently winning more listings, selling more homes, and doing this kind of pricing, you can subscribe today. We have membership options from $300 a year to $39 a month where you have no contract, cancel anytime, and just really kind of understand how this process works and get the power from our graphs. Now, the best thing about that is you don't just get the software, you get in-depth classes, you get integrated additional marketing software called Real Estate Reviews. You get classes with that, you get resources, and you get that FHA graph automatically done for you with a little email template that you can send to customers and really drive an auto flow business. So hopefully this case study helped you. And if you want to learn more about our software, our classes, our resources, or anything else about pricing and using the competitive positioning process, check us out at focusfirst.com. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to more videos giving you real examples of pricing homes here at Focus First.